Linda Jo Morton, known on BookTube as Linda Book Lady, and today I'm going to be doing a winter wrap-up video. I am going to do 4 of these videos because I have read so many books this last winter. I have read about 40 books. This time I'm going to be talking only about the fiction that I read, and then there's 3 other categories that are coming in other videos. The first fiction that I read this last winter was Leota's Garden by Francine Rivers. A very nice book about a grandmother who was being neglected by her children, and she wasn't expecting it, but suddenly her 18-year-old granddaughter showed up and wanted to have a relationship with her. It was a sweet and heartwarming book, and I gave it 4 stars. The next novel that I read was A Redbird Christmas by Fannie Flagg. I finished it on January 3rd, and I gave it 5 stars. It was another heartwarming book, a very good Christmas read, although you don't have to actually read that one at Christmas, because it does cover the entire year between the 2 Christmases. So apparently there were, this book had recipes in the back. It was that kind of book. So anyhow, a man came from Chicago to Alabama, I believe it was, and he moved into a very small community and got into friendships with the people there. It was really a sweet thing. There was a red bird involved. The next book that I read was another women's novel called The Quilter's Apprentice. It was the first book in a long series of quilt books by Jennifer Chiaverini. I gave it 4 stars. I finished it January 26th, and it was interesting. I guess I'm just not into quilting as much as some other people. I've never really been into quilting, but still a very interesting book. Not Christian. I saw somebody on Goodreads called it a Christian novel, and I would say it's a clean novel, but it's not Christian. But it was a nice story about a young woman and her husband who moved into a community, and they just were getting to know the people there and got jobs, and one of the people that she got to know was a quilter, a master quilter. And I don't want to say too much, no spoilers. Okay, let's go on to the next book. The next novel that I read this last winter was The Secret Keeper by Kate Morton. Gave it 5 stars. It takes place in England at 2 time periods. It was one of those dual timeline novels. One timeline was around World War II, and the other one was contemporary. And I thought it was a fantastic book. Like I said, I gave it 5 stars and really liked it and want to read more Kate Morton novels. I have in the past read one, The Forgotten Garden. I also liked that one. So based on what I know about those 2 novels, I would say that her novels are probably the ones that I should read because I know I'll like them. Okay, the next novel that I read was actually, I think it was a Kindle novel, Finding Lady Enderly by Joanna Davidson Politano. Gave it 4 stars. It was not as well developed as the one I had just read. The one I read, The Secret Keeper, was dual timeline. It was just an amazing novel. And then I read this Finding Lady Enderly, which was a Christian novel, historical novel, but I just didn't like it quite as much because probably the author is just getting started, and she's probably going to be writing a lot of better books in the future. That's kind of how I felt about it. But still a decent book, and people were giving it 5 stars, but I decided to give it 4. Now the next novel that I wrote was kind of a classic. Did I say wrote? No, I meant read. The next novel that I read was kind of a classic. It's Rebecca by Daphne DeMar. 5 stars for that one. It was very well written. It was pretty spooky. about a woman and her husband living in England, and don't want to say too much, but that's a pretty good novel. Okay, so what happened was his first wife passed away, and then he married this other girl, and she became obsessed with the first wife. And they lived, of course, in a mansion, maybe more than a mansion, a palace. Sounded like it was a big house. Anyhow, with servants. So anyhow, Rebecca, pretty good book, 5 stars. Finished it March 14th. Then I read The Children's Blizzard by Melanie Benjamin. This was one of the books that I had been given through the Goodreads giveaway program. This was the second time I had read a Melanie Benjamin novel. And what did I give it? I didn't write down how many stars. I'm going to guess that I gave it 5 stars, or maybe 4. You know, it was a really sad topic to write a novel about. A huge blizzard. This actually happened in history in 1888, January 12th, and a lot of people died in the blizzard in Nebraska and South Dakota. So she wrote a novel. The people in her novel are fictional, but she based them on people that she had read about in news accounts of things that had happened during the blizzard. And it was a very sad novel because people were dying, but at the same time, I thought it was a very important novel that she actually got that out there for people to learn more about the blizzard and the suffering that those people went through. So I thought it was a good book. The next novel that I read, I actually didn't like very much. It was a classic. I gave it 3 stars, and it was All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Maria Remarque, Remarque. I think his last name was actually Remarque, and then he reworked it so it's a little bit better in print. Anyhow, I finished that one March 20th. I gave it 3 stars because I did not like the violence. It was all about World War I, a soldier, what he was going through, and as much as you care and you want to have sympathy for the kid, oh my goodness, all that violence in the pages of a book was just too much for me. I mean, and there was TMI in that book. So, 3 stars. It was very well written, even though I didn't like it. The next book I read, the next novel, was The Crystal Cave by Mary Stewart. Finished it March 22nd. I gave it 4 stars. The Crystal Cave is the first book in a 4-part series by Mary Stewart. It is the only series that she wrote, and it's all about King Arthur and those people back then. So she called it the Arthurian Saga. This was the first book, The Crystal Cave, and it was narrated by Merlin, you know, the magician guy. And so this actually covers his childhood and early adult years. So it was really a very interesting and well-written book too, and there was a little bit too much violence in there for me, so I don't know if I'm going to go on with the series. It's just not the kind of book that I was wanting to read. I'm getting a little tired of violence in books, so I'm learning to bypass it a little bit. So that was 4 stars, and then the next one I decided I wanted to read a Mary Stewart book again, but this time from her romantic suspense novels, which she's written 16 of them. And I gave it 5 stars. I read Thunder on the Right, which was actually her 3rd novel, published in 1957. And it was a mystery about a girl who goes to France to look for her cousin. I believe it's her cousin that was staying there. And her cousin invited her to show up and be part of her adventure at a convent. They were going to stay at a convent. And when she got to the convent, the nuns told her that unfortunately on the way there, her cousin was driving and there was an automobile accident. She was injured and taken to the convent and stayed there for a while, and then she passed away. So they actually had buried her cousin before she got there. And this girl, Jennifer, she did not believe it. She didn't believe it. And then her boyfriend showed up unexpectedly because her parents had tried to separate her from her boyfriend, and then her boyfriend found out where she was going to be and just showed up on the scene. And he seemed totally unconcerned about her cousin. He wasn't there to see the cousin, he just wanted to see his girlfriend. So that's kind of how the book started, and it got a little better from there. I really liked it. Of course, gave it 5 stars, and I have decided that I'm going to read all of the Mary Stewart romantic suspense novels. There's 16 of them, and I'm going to start at the beginning. But before I got to that, I decided to read the 4th book. The 4th novel that she wrote was 9 Coaches Waiting, and I read it because I found out that the main character was named the same name as me. Her name was Linda Martin, and I never thought of my name as being an appropriate name for a romance novel, but there it was. I guess Mary Stewart did think my name was appropriate, so she named her main character Linda Martin. And Linda is an orphan, and she decides that she's going to take a job in France, taking care of a little boy at a large and beautiful estate. And things did not go as well as she had hoped, let's put it that way. But the little boy was a remarkable and precious character. So I think most people that I've talked to about Mary Stewart, well, a lot of them say this was their favorite novel out of all 16. So I've read it now, and I really enjoyed it and gave it 5 stars. And now that I've read novels 3 and 4 in the series, I'm going to backtrack and read novels 1 and 2, and then go on from there. And I found a group to do it with on Goodreads. We'll talk to you in another video. The next video is going to be about nonfiction books that I read last winter. Talk to you later.